Kevin Wayne Durant was born September 29th, 1988 in Washington, D.C. Growing up, his favorite team was the Toronto Raptors because of Vince Carter, who was not only his favorite player, but someone he really looked up to and wanted to be like. During his high school years, Kevin spent 2 years at the National Christian Academy in Maryland, a year at Oak Hill Academy in Virginia, and his senior year at Montrose Christian School in Maryland, where he grew 5 inches, getting to the height of 6'7" before the season even started. At the Montrose Christian School, Durant was elected to the All-American High School team. After high school, Kevin Durant attended the University of Texas, where he led the Big 12 in scoring, averaging 25.8 points per game, 11.1 rebounds, 1.3 assists, with 1.9 steals and 1.9 blocks a game. He was also elected first-team All-American and became the first freshman to win a unanimous National College Player of the Year award. After a very extensive high school and college career, Kevin Durant was drafted second overall by the Seattle Supersonics in 2007. His first year in Seattle, Kevin won Rookie of the Year while averaging 20.3 points per game, 2.4 assists, 4.4 rebounds. He also started all 80 games that he played that season. Kevin Durant has never averaged less than 25 points per game in a season since his rookie year. In 2008, after the Supersonics failed to make an agreement with the city of Seattle over a new arena, the franchise made the decision to relocate to Oklahoma City. While with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Kevin Durant won MVP in the 2013-2014 season, averaging 32 points per game, 5.5 assists, and 7.4 rebounds. However, as we all know, OKC was never able to be successful with this roster. Durant's first time in the playoffs was his third year in 2010, with a rookie James Harden and Serge Ibaka and a sophomore year Russell Westbrook. They were a young, promising team with lots of potential, but sadly lost 4-2 to the LA Lakers. But this was just their first year. They would be back. The Thunder made the playoffs again next year, and they made it all the way to the Western Conference semifinals. This was a huge feat for such a young team, whether they won or lost. Ultimately, though, they lost 4-1 to the Mavericks, who would actually go on to beat the Heat in the finals. They got their revenge next year, in 2012, and swept the Mavericks. Then they made it all the way to the finals, but they did lose 4-1 to the Heat super team. Kevin Durant was officially solidifying himself at this point as the second best player in the league, behind none other than LeBron James. However, eventually, Harden got traded to Houston, and then matched up against KD and Russ in 2013 in the first round. OKC won 4-2, but then they lost to the Memphis Grizzlies 4-1 in the next round. 2014 looked like it could be their year. They got revenge against the Grizzlies, beat the Lob City Clippers, then lost to the Spurs team that had Kawhi Leonard, another team to go on to beat the Heat. 2015 was obviously the huge emergence of the Golden State Warriors dynasty that would come to be. Durant unfortunately got injured this year, which led to OKC completely missing the playoffs. The 2015-2016 season was Kevin Durant's last year with the franchise that drafted him. They made the playoffs this year, and even got all the way to a 7-game series against Golden State, where they fell short. At this point, Durant had gotten significant playoff experience with OKC and had been considered the number 2 in the league for years, but he didn't see his future with OKC and decided to leave. A decision that a lot of people would consider detrimental to his legacy, but for me personally, it opened up a brighter future for him. In 2016, Kevin Durant made the decision to join the Warriors, who he'd had recent struggles against. He saw this as his best winning opportunity, and when they did, they won back-to-back championships with KD, their third in total. Durant won Finals MVP both years, being arguably the best player on the best team for 3 years in a row, before his most serious injury in his career. In 2019, Durant was injured in the playoffs against the Toronto Raptors. This would not only lead them to losing the championship, but KD also not playing the entire next season. Durant decided to leave Golden State during his injury and join the Brooklyn Nets in the 2020-2021 season. It's crazy that the very same team that was his favorite growing up was the one that he had his worst injury against, the one that would inevitably lead to him leaving the team that he won championships with. Not only that, but once again, he lost to Kawhi Leonard. In 2021, Bleacher Report put out an article like they always do, predicting the NBA playoffs for that year. Who will win, who will lose, and how many games, etc. In round 1 of the Eastern Conference playoffs, the prediction for the Brooklyn Nets versus Boston Celtics series was that none of what the Celtics roster could do would matter, because the offense of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden would lead the Nets to a 5-game series win over Boston. And the prediction was right. Kevin Durant averaged 32.6 points per game, 3 assists, and 7.4 rebounds in a playoff series on shooting splits of 50-40-90. Arguably the best player between both teams and a historic playoff performance. Bleacher Report predicted for the Nets vs. Bucks series that the roster contributions from Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, and Jeff Green would just be too much for the Bucks to handle. The prediction for the series was Nets winning in 6. They didn't. The favorite in the series lost in 7 to the team who would go on to win the championship. However, Kevin Durant on his own had an even better series than he did against the Celtics, averaging 35.4 points per game, 10.6 rebounds, and 5.4 assists, maintaining great shooting splits. The Nets ultimately failed and ended up losing James Harden to the 76ers for a year of no Ben Simmons. However, even with no Ben Simmons, some people still had high expectations for the Nets. How can a team led by Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving just be completely forgotten about? Well, getting swept 4-0 by the team that you just beat 4-1 the year before isn't great for anyone. Especially when Kevin Durant dropped nearly 10 points per game to 26.3, shooting his worst efficiencies over the last 3 years. In a lot of people's minds, the Nets were over and done with. People started calling for Steve Nash's head, Kevin Durant wanted out, Kyrie had some major problems, it was all crashing around them, and fans had basically nowhere to look. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, Steve Nash finally got fired, and Kevin Durant seemed to finally be happy on the team again, as they started putting the pieces back together and figuring out what they needed to do. And now, the Nets are back at the top at the 2nd seed, behind the team that swept them last year, the Celtics. As I'm writing this, the Nets are 27-13, Kevin Durant is top 5 in the league, and averaging 29.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, and 5.3 assists. The Nets look good again after struggling so hard last year. All of this being said though, where do we put Kevin Durant in regards to all-time greats? For me personally, I think KD is inevitably going down in history as a top 10 player, probably around 9th or 8th greatest of all time. He is probably the greatest scorer this game has ever seen, and he himself is a unicorn of a player, being basically a 7-foot-tall guard with amazing ball handling abilities, the superpower of being able to shoot over anyone at will, and the attitude of wanting to win, contrary to what so many people will say about him. Kevin Durant is a locked Hall of Famer, and I think it's only fair to say he is one of the greats. As for the future, we have to see what the Nets will do this year. Will they win a championship?